In the grim darkness of the far future, there are no miracles, only opportunities for a different kind of tyranny. Imagine a world where the sacred aquila of the Imperium is torn down from the city gates, replaced overnight by the stylized emblem of an alien empire. This is an imperial planet that has fallen under the rule of the Tau. Once, its people pledged undying loyalty to the god-emperor of mankind. Now they find themselves asked to serve a very different master, the so-called greater good. What fate awaits these billions of souls caught in the shadow between human empire and alien ambition? This documentary explores the rise, transformation, and uncertain future of an imperial world under Tau rule. Prepare to witness what truly becomes of a human world when the eagle gives way to the Tau's twin-pointed sphere. The fall of an imperial world. Our journey begins with the end of an era. The world in question, once a dot on the star maps of the Imperium, did not fall in a single day. In fact, the conquest of many imperial planets by the Tau often starts quietly, years or even decades before a shot is fired. Picture the scene: a frontier planet on the eastern fringe, far from the watchful eyes of Terra. Its hive cities and ash-choked manufactoria toil under the weight of imperial tithes. Its people endure grinding poverty and fearful obedience, as they have for generations. Then strangers arrive, not in drop pods or with bolter fire, but aboard sleek diplomatic shuttles, envoys of the Tau water caste. They bring exotic gifts, cures for the planet's ague and lung rot, devices to purify the toxic water, grains that grow in barren soil. They speak words of friendship and mutual prosperity. For the first time, perhaps, the planetary governor hears a Xenos voice that doesn't snarl or hiss, but instead offers alliance and trade. It starts with trade agreements, a minor pact signed in the governor's palace, almost hush-hush. Advanced medicines in exchange for ore shipments, agricultural drones in return for a few rights of way. Harmless, no. The administratum might raise an eyebrow if it knew, but out here on the fringe, survival often trumps doctrine. So the governor and his advisors play a dangerous game. Just a bit of xenotech to help our crops. What's the harm? The Tau are patient. Over months and years, they win hearts and minds on this world, one transaction and one polite smile at a time. The Planetary Defense Forces commanders receive rangefinders and new rifles as samples. The workers see their infirmaries stocked with Tau medical kits. And every one of these gifts whispers the same seductive promise. Life under the Tau could be better than what the Imperium gives. But not everyone is entranced. In the shadows of the Ministorum churches, fiery preachers denounce the alien gifts as poisoned apples. The Imperial cult clergy, the Adeptus Mechanicus tech priests, the Adeptus Arbites judges, they all sense the change in the wind. They know these generous visitors are the vanguard of something that threatens the Emperor's absolute claim on this world. Tension rises. Whispers of heresy spread. Some locals begin to openly question why they send their sons off-world to die for distant Terra, while blue-skinned diplomats stand in the capital promising peace and prosperity. Eventually, inevitably, the Imperium takes notice. Perhaps a zealous Inquisitor's informant reports unusual activity, or a routine astropathic message finally squeals through the warp to Sector Command. Xenos influence suspected on planet. The Imperium's response, when it comes, is characteristically uncompromising. Suddenly, the world finds a new fleet in its skies. Imperial warships translating from warp space with orders to snuff out any hint of Xenos meddling. This is when subtle diplomacy ends and open war begins. The Tau, however, have not been idle. By the time the Imperium moves to bring the world back into compliance, the planet's defenses are thoroughly compromised. Some regiments of the Planetary Defense Force, those same soldiers who benefited from Tau weapons and training, turn their coats. Factories scheduled to produce munitions for the Imperial Guard are sabotaged by workers now loyal to the idea of a better life with the Tau. Entire districts raise the flag of secession, refusing to heed the panicked edicts of the planetary governor, who, truth be told, may himself be contemplating a devil's bargain with the aliens. The war for the world's soul erupts. Loyalist PDF troops and possibly a detachment of the Astra Militarum, or even Adeptus Astartes, clash with separatists and sleek Tau battlesuits on burning plains and bombed-out city blocks. Propaganda loudspeakers shout, "For the Emperor," on one street, and around the corner drones broadcast calm-voiced Tau messages of unity, progress, and prosperity. The people are torn in two, neighbor against neighbor. It's a short, savage conflict. Most are when the Tau are involved. The Tau strategy is not to meet the Imperium head-on in a protracted slugging match. They know that the Imperium can throw endless bodies into the meat grinder. Instead, the aliens play to their strengths: speed, precision, and shock. They strike key targets: orbital defense silos, command bunkers, communication nodes, in lightning-fast assaults. Each strike leaves the defenders reeling and ever more leaderless. One by one, the symbols of Imperial authority on the planet fall. Perhaps it's the planetary governor's palace breached by a team of Tau stealth battlesuits, the governor himself captured while cowering behind his gold-embroidered desk. Perhaps it's the cathedral of the Emperor Integral, the tallest spire in the capital, shattered by an orbital pinpoint strike, crashing down in a pile of rubble and pious art, its fall a literal and symbolic decapitation of Imperial rule. The Adeptus Arbites precinct fortress might hold out for a time out of sheer stubbornness, its judges and enforcers making the Xenos pay for every corridor in blood. But ultimately they are isolated. No reinforcements are coming from Terra in time, and they fall. Even Space Marines, if any were present, can only conduct a fighting withdrawal or a last stand. Adeptus Astartes do not surrender, but they are too few to turn the tide alone. In one grim scenario, a squad of Ultramarines evacuates after extracting what relics they can, vowing to return with an entire chapter to avenge this loss. In another, perhaps more tragic, a small force of Space Marines refuses to retreat and is annihilated to the last man in a blaze of glory that becomes martyr's lore for the Imperium. Ultimately, the Imperial forces either retreat off-world or are destroyed. The Tau raise their banner in the capital plaza. This world, once a loyal vassal of the Imperium for millennia, has now officially joined the Tau Empire. The transition from one empire to another is complete on paper. But the real story is only beginning, because conquering a world is one thing. Holding and transforming it is quite another. The Tau understand this too. They know that taking possession of a planet full of humans doesn't mean those humans will instantly shed 10,000 years of Imperial indoctrination. The next phase is crucial: to secure the peace and to reshape the world in the image of the greater good. And so, even as smoke still rises from the last battlefields, the wheels of a new society start turning. A new dawn, or just another night. Dawn breaks on the first day of Tau rule. The sun illuminates cities scarred by conflict, streets strewn with burnt-out tanks bearing the Imperial Aquila, and the occasional downed Tau battlesuit amidst the rubble. Ordinary people poke their heads out of hab-block basements and makeshift shelters, wondering what comes next. They expect retribution. After all, the Imperial way of war is merciless to the defeated. Will the Xenos now exact a bloody vengeance for the resistance offered? Will they purge the population to make a point? Many whisper prayers to the Emperor, still hoping he delivers them even now, though those prayers seem to fall on deaf ears. But instead of summary executions and mass graves, the people witness something unexpected: restraint. Tau fire warriors patrol the streets with discipline and surprisingly little harassment of the locals. There are no wanton massacres, no wholesale looting or burning. This isn't the nightmare of a chaos invasion or an orc wach. It's something far more calculated. The Tau came to claim this world, not destroy it. After all, what use is a new world to the Empire if it's nothing but a charnel house? Make no mistake, there are reprisals, but they are targeted. The former planetary governor, if he survived and was captured, is a prime example. If he actively resisted to the end, he's likely paraded briefly, a cautionary tale, and then dealt with, perhaps executed or sent off-world as a prisoner. If he secretly negotiated with the Tau at the 11th hour and facilitated the surrender of key facilities, he might actually find himself in a very strange second act of his career, as a Tau-appointed administrator for the transition. A puppet, essentially, kept around for whatever useful knowledge or influence he still has, but always under the watch of a Tau advisor, likely a watercast official or even an ethereal in high-profile cases. Imagine the indignity for a man who once held absolute power by the Emperor's mandate, now reduced to taking orders from an alien half his age and with a fraction of his pomp. It would be almost comical if lives and entire cultures weren't hanging in the balance. As for the Imperial institutions on the planet, the purge is methodical. The Adeptus Arbites judges and any remaining Inquisition agents are top priority for roundup. These figures embody Imperial law and will never accept Tau rule, so the Tau make sure they cannot organize any guerrilla resistance or assassinations. Many are killed in the fighting or executed shortly after, while a few might go underground to plan a futile insurgency. The Adeptus Mechanicus contingent, Magos, engine seers, tech priests tending the factories, faces a stark fate as well. In the eyes of the Mechanicus, to cooperate with Xenos is heresy of the highest order. They would sooner die than share sacred technology or serve aliens. And the Tau know the tech priests have the skills to sabotage planetary infrastructure if left to their own devices. So Earth-cast teams work quickly to secure manufactoria and factorums, often politely but firmly disarming any scruples the human tech adepts have, or simply escorting them to detention. There are rumors that the Tau sometimes offer the Mechanicus personnel a deal. Help integrate the existing machinery into Tau systems, avoid bloodshed, maybe retire peacefully. It rarely works. The average tech priest would rather spit acid than let a Xenos interface with a holy Imperial plasma reactor. So, unfortunately, many of these red-robed holdouts perish in accidents or resisting arrest. In the end, the great forges and power plants are claimed by the Earthcast, who marvel at how such crude, if robust, machines ever kept running with patchwork maintenance and litanies. The ecclesiarchy, the priests and bishops of the Imperial cult, are another matter entirely. They cannot be seen as martyrs. The last thing the Tau want is to ignite an endless spiritual rebellion. So the approach here is somewhat more nuanced. High-ranking clergy who fomented armed resistance often die in battle or are quietly executed soon after. Shot while attempting to flee, the report might say. But lesser clergy and the most popular preachers might be handled with kid gloves at first. The Tau are keenly aware that religion is a powerful opiate, perhaps more than they fully understand, lacking religion themselves. The Ethereals, or the Water Caste, might attempt a conciliatory tone, allowing the Imperial cult some continued existence under supervision. at least initially. For example, churches might remain open for a time, masses still held, but with any openly seditious sermons swiftly stopped. A savvy water-caste governor might even reframe the imperial faith in a way that's not overtly anti-Xenos. Surely your emperor would wish you to live in peace and prosperity rather than die in pointless rebellion. Is he not a protector of humanity? We too protect you. Thus we serve his ultimate will. This sort of rhetorical tightrope is walked carefully. In some cases, it is astonishing but true. The worship of the emperor is not immediately outlawed by the Tau. As long as it remains a private comfort and does not incite violence against the new order, it may be tolerated in the short term. The logic is simple. People ripped suddenly from their lifelong faith could become desperate and unmanageable. If letting them pray to their distant emperor at home keeps them docile, the Tau will swallow that annoyance for now. After all, the greater good can be patient. However, any priest who dares cry death to Xenos or urge the masses to resist is going to disappear faster than you can say heresy. Perhaps he's arrested and sent to a re-education camp to have his zeal quietly broken. Or perhaps, if the Tau are feeling especially pragmatic, such a firebrand meets with an unfortunate accident on the very first night of the new regime. The message is clear. Spiritual rebellion will not be tolerated, but private faith, declawed and declawed of its anti-alien venom, might be left alone for now. Day by day, the ordinary citizens begin to notice changes in their world. At first, curfews are imposed to keep order. Armed drones hover over city blocks, their sleek lenses scanning for any signs of unrest. It's an eerie sight. Silent mechanical sentinels where once clunky Imperial Arbites patrol vehicles screeched through the streets. Some citizens find it terrifying, others oddly relieving. At least those drones don't randomly beat us for fun, a cynical hab worker might mutter, recalling how some Imperial enforcers used to abuse their power. The Tau command takeovers extend to communications as well. Vox networks, picked screens, and news Vox casters are now under watercast supervision. Instead of the usual Imperial broadcast of our brave soldiers fight and die for the Emperor on distant fronts, accompanied by approved sermons and piped hymns, people hear calm announcements. Attention citizens! By decree of the Provisional Governing Authority, all curfews will be lifted as of tomorrow 0700. Food and water distribution centers are set up in each district. Cooperation is the path to prosperity. The messages are delivered in a reassuring baritone, possibly even by a human voice known to the locals, perhaps a prominent PDF officer who sided with the Tau, now acting as the mouthpiece of the occupation. The media is being expertly used to shape perception. The war is over. Life is getting better. Don't resist, and it will improve more. And indeed, in a stroke of public relations genius, the Tau make sure to show tangible improvements as quickly as possible. They aren't fools. They know bread and circuses can pacify as well as any gun. Within days, the Earth-cast engineers are out on the streets alongside human technicians who are curious or opportunistic enough to cooperate. They start repairing what was damaged, and not just to the previous standard. No, they go further, rigging up clean energy generators where the old Promethium reactors had blown out, installing water filtration units in districts where drinking water was a brown sludge, patching hab blocks, and even setting up new illum lighting to replace the flickering ancient lumoglobes people had gotten used to. Imagine the stunned faces of residents in a Hive City habstack when, overnight, their communal drinking fountain, which had given rusty, brackish water for decades, suddenly pumps out clear, cold, safe water thanks to a compact Tau purifier humming away next to it. It feels like magic or a miracle, Some might even whisper that the Emperor has answered their prayers after all, not realizing to whom they truly owe this change. Perhaps one of the most iconic moments in this early transition is the dismantling of the Imperial icons. In the central square, a towering marble statue of the Emperor, you know the type, stern, patriarchal, one hand pointing to the horizon, the other clutching a massive sword, has stood for centuries. It's chipped and blackened from war, but still upright. On the third day of the new regime, Tau hovercraft and engineering crews come with cranes and cutting tools. A crowd gathers, tens of thousands of humans watching in weighted silence. They expect the statue to be smashed, toppled violently as a show of dominance. That's what they would have done to an enemy's idol, after all. But here the Tau surprised them. The ethereal present, floating slightly above the ground on his grav platform, robes flowing, gives a short speech about progress and unity, carefully crafted not to overtly insult the Emperor. Then, with almost respectful procedure, the Earth-caste operatives unlatch the statue from its base and lift it away. It's not shattered in front of the masses. It is, instead, quietly removed, taken into storage, as the official announcement goes. Storage, repurposed, who knows? Perhaps melted for marble and powdered gold, perhaps kept in some vault as a curious relic. In its place, a new monument is prepared. Over following weeks, the plaza will see the erection of a new sculpture or display. Perhaps a sleek holographic monument to the planet's liberation and unity under the greater good. Or a statue of the ethereal who brokered the peace, arm outstretched in a welcoming pose. But that will come later. For now, the empty pedestal is symbolic enough. The old gods have gone, and the new have yet to fully settle, a moment of limbo in the world's identity. In those early days, the atmosphere is surreal and tense, but not uniformly grim. Many citizens are cautious but cautiously optimistic. The war was short, their city still stands, they have water and power again, and those fearsome Tau soldiers mostly leave them alone unless they cause trouble. To a mother who just wants her children fed and safe, this feels like a strange sort of relief. To an underhive laborer who only knew fear under Imperial overseers, the absence of arbitrary cruelty is noticed. Perhaps he chuckles darkly with his mates that these fish-faced aliens seem downright polite compared to the old factory bosses. But for others, especially those who were privileged under Imperial rule, the new order heralds uncertainty or dread. The noble house patriarch, who enjoyed a direct line to the governor and exploitative contracts, now sees Tau officials auditing the granaries and armories he controlled, and he breaks into cold sweat. The high-ranking cleric, who thundered from the pulpit about human destiny, finds himself muzzled and watched. Fearing that every night might be the one, a Tau stealth team drags him from his bed for questioning. For them, this new dawn feels more like a twilight. Life under the greater good. As weeks turn into months, the shock of regime change settles into the routine of occupation, or integration, as the Tau prefer to call it. The Tau Empire doesn't want this to feel like a planet under boot heel, at least not overtly. They want it to feel like a province being welcomed into a greater nation. So they work hard to normalize things, to win the population's cooperation by carrot and stick alike. Let's delve into daily life now. How is it truly different from before? What subtle transformations seep into every aspect of society under the watchful gaze of the Tau? Governance and law. First, the planetary government gets a complete overhaul. The Imperium's bureaucracy, the local branch of the administratum, governor's court, etc., is mostly disbanded. In its stead, the Tau establish a new ruling council. Typically, at the top is a Tau governor, often a water caste official skilled in administration and human relations. Sometimes an ethereal oversees from behind the scenes, especially in the critical initial years, though ethereals prefer to remain somewhat aloof, more religious figureheads than pencil pushers. Directly under the Tau governor, there may be a council of human advisors. Yes, humans. These tend to be influential locals who early on pledged loyalty to the Tau Empire. Perhaps a few PDF generals who defected, a prominent city mayor, an industrial magnate who always chafed under imperial tithes and now sees profit in siding with the new masters. These individuals are often trotted out as proof that, see, we're letting you govern yourselves under our guidance. It's a classic collaborationist government. It has just enough local face to make people think they have a say, but everyone knows where the real power sits, with the Tau overseers. Laws are rewritten swiftly. All imperial decrees and edicts are nullified. No more are things like no tolerance for mutants or mandated observance of Saints' Day in effect. Instead, new laws emphasize order, productivity, and unity. Curfews might be lifted once things are stable, replaced by softer but ubiquitous surveillance to keep the peace. Crime, ironically, is initially low, partly because everyone is on their best behavior, partly because many gang leaders and thugs were killed in the upheaval or fled, and partly because the Tau drones and patrols respond to incidents with startling efficiency. The old underworld hasn't had time to adapt yet, and the new authorities neither accept bribes nor issue them. A pickpocket is more likely to be gently stunned by a drone-mounted taser and then given a stern talking to about communal responsibility than he is to have his hand amputated or be bludgeoned by a brutish arbitrator. This is a different style of rule indeed. One curious development: language. High Gothic and Low Gothic, the languages of the Imperium, are of course still spoken by everyone, including the Tau interpreters. The Tau make no move to outlaw the human tongue. That would be foolish. However, you start to see Tau script appearing alongside Gothic on public notices and building signage. Maybe the street signs in the capital now have the city name in the angular Tau alphabet under the old letters, as if subtly saying, this is a Tau city now. Government proclamations might be issued bilingually, and schools, we'll get to those soon, begin teaching basic Tau lexicon to children. Over time, the goal is clear: bilingual society that can eventually tilt towards primarily speaking the language of the greater good. It's soft power at its finest. Win them through words and culture, not just guns. After all, if in a generation the people speak Tau fluently, they'll think in Tau concepts too. One might hear a factory foreman barking orders in Gothic one shift and slipping into Tau the next to impress his overseer. New idioms creep in. People start saying "by the greater good" as an exclamation instead of "throne," short for "by the throne of Terra." At least those who want to seem with the program. Economic changes. Under the Imperium, most worlds endure heavy tithes, a set portion of their products, be it manufactured goods, minerals, or manpower, shipped off-world to fuel the greater Imperial war machine. It's an immense burden. Our world was no different. Its people were used to quotas that left them just enough to survive. Under Tau rule, the economic model shifts. The Tau Empire certainly expects this world to contribute to the Empire's needs. There's no free lunch in any empire, human or alien. But they take a more balanced approach, at least ostensibly. The Tau conduct a thorough survey of the planet's resources and productive capacities. Earth-caste technicians and water-caste economists analyze everything. How many tons of ore can be refined? How many acres are arable? What the workforce skill levels are. Then they reorganize production with an eye for efficiency and mutual benefit. that mining operation that used to send 90% of its yield off-world to the Imperial Forge world, leaving the locals to scrabble over the remaining. 10% might now be regeared to send, say, 60% to the Tau Sept worlds to support the Empire's needs, while 40% stays on the planet for local development. Why the change? Because the Tau genuinely want their new possession to prosper. A prosperous planet produces more in the long run and is a happier, less rebellious one. So, more raw material is allowed to remain and be turned into finished goods locally. The people might notice new workshops opening, making consumer goods or farming tools with those resources that previously would have been whisked away. Jobs expand. Wages, a concept that was often meaningless under the Imperium's drudgery economy, might actually increase modestly, or at least hold value since the Tau carefully managed supply chains to avoid the absurd shortages that Imperial bureaucratic mismanagement often caused. Trade is introduced as well. This world isn't isolated anymore. It's integrated into the Tau Empire's trade network. Merchants, human and Tau, begin to arrive. You see Vespid traders buzzing in markets selling sparkling crystals from the nebulae they come from, or lanky Kroot offering exotic animal pelts and strange meats, to the disgust or fascination of locals. Likewise, the planet exports its own specialties in exchange for things unimaginable before, perhaps efficient agri-harvesters, hollow entertainment devices, even simple luxury items like flavorful alien fruits, all imported through Tau commerce. After ages of scarcity and monotony, new goods flood the stalls. People line up with ration chits converted to a new currency. The Tau might introduce a credit or script to try these off-world products. It's dazzling. Consumer seduction, one might say. The message is implicit. See what the greater good brings you. See how your life can improve materially. Technology and infrastructure. This might be where everyday folks see the most obvious change, and one reason many grudgingly decide, these blue fellas ain't so bad. The Imperium's technology, while powerful, is stagnant and often doled out only to the military or upper classes. Your average citizen might never handle anything more advanced than a rusty autocarbine or a Vox unit that's older than his grandfather. The Tau, by contrast, are tech enthusiasts. They won't hand out top-of-the-line gear to just anyone, of course, but they implement many infrastructure upgrades as part of integration. We've mentioned clean water and power distribution improving. Additionally, transportation networks get a facelift. Old combustion engine ground cars are replaced or supplemented by anti-grav skimmers for public transit in the cities. Imagine, you used to cram into an old promethium-belching hopper to get to the factory, but now a sleek, humming skimmer bus glides up to the hab block, efficiently ferrying workers across town on schedule. It might be jarring at first. Who trusts a machine with no wheels and no obvious driver? But soon it's the new normal. Roadways are cleared of military checkpoints. No more arbitrators demanding identification papers at every district border. Instead, maybe there are drone checkpoints that scan your biometric ID as you pass. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you never even notice them, beyond a blue light flickering as you walk by. In the farming areas, the Earthcast introduces mechanized agro-drones to till and sow, meaning the backbreaking labor of serfs is alleviated. Now, one drone overseen by a single human can plow a field in an hour that used to take 50 laborers all day. What do those other 49 laborers do now? Initially, that might seem a problem, and there is some displacement. But the Tau administration actively reassigns or retrains people. Those redundant farmhands might be offered a chance to join local auxiliary units or to work on new construction projects, building the Montova Cultural Center, perhaps, named after the greater good in Tau, as a new community hub where indoctrination, cultural exchange can happen. Basically, the Tau strive to avoid creating masses of unemployed, bored citizens. That leads to unrest. So they keep everyone busy with the grand project of improving our world. For the first time in living memory, a significant number of common folk have leisure time and improved living standards. It's modest, of course. We're not talking paradise. But going from constant drudgery and fear under the Imperium to having an extra meal on the table and maybe an afternoon off on Saints, oops, those aren't celebrated anymore, let's say on Unity Day, well, that's a big change in perspective for many. Some older citizens shake their heads and mutter, "It's unnatural, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop." But their grandchildren laugh and enjoy their mysterious Tau sweet candies, blissfully unconcerned with the old ways. Social changes and education. Perhaps the most profound transformation, and the subtlest, comes in the realm of hearts and minds. The Tau call it the indoctrination of the greater good, and they execute it carefully. They know they cannot simply decree everyone to be model Tau citizens overnight. Instead, they focus on the next generation and the malleable members of the current one. Schools are a major target. Under the Imperium, education for the masses often consisted of rote learning of imperial catechisms, basic labor skills, and plenty of propaganda about the Emperor's glory. On this world, as soon as stability returns, the Tau establish new educational programs. Often they repurpose the existing skolum, schools, but with a revised curriculum. Human teachers who are willing to cooperate are retrained. Those who resist are quietly replaced by teachers loyal to the Tau, either other humans who have converted to the greater good philosophy, or even watercast instructors for higher levels. Children begin each school day not with a prayer to the Emperor that's been quietly removed, but perhaps with a pledge to unity or a moment of contemplating the greater good. They learn history, a new history that casts the Tau Empire in a favorable light. Their old textbooks full of imperial heroism are replaced with materials that, for example, describe how various species, including humans, live in harmony under Tau guidance. The textbook might still mention the Emperor, but as a historical figure, a powerful leader of the past, who, it is implied, would have surely approved of the noble goals of cooperation had he been less misguided. This infuriates any imperial loyalist adult who hears it, but those folks aren't invited to curriculum planning sessions. Kids also learn the basics of Tau language, as noted, and Tau measurements, timekeeping. The Tau have their own calendar and clocks, though likely the planet keeps using human 24-hour days if that's its cycle. However, the concept of a local year might be integrated with a Tau dateline for empire-wide reference. They are taught science and tech more openly than imperial edicts usually allow. The Tau aren't afraid of knowledge per se, they fear misuse. But a populace that can maintain a drone or medkit is useful. In short, the youth are being shaped to become loyal Gue'vesa, the Tau word for human helpers/allies. This doesn't mean it's all brainwashing in classrooms. There are also community events, orchestrated cultural exchanges. The Tau might host a grand exhibition in the capital, the Commonwealth of the Greater Good Fair, where humans can come and see displays about the different member species of the Empire, taste alien foods, watch a choreographed display of Tau warriors demonstrating their martial arts, with an ethereal present nodding sagely at the unity of species. It's half propaganda, half genuine attempt at multicultural introduction. For a society that was told all aliens are monsters, this is bewildering. Some folks walk through the exhibition hall in amazement. A worker points at a Kroot shaper, a tall avian reptilian mercenary, demonstrating tracking skills and says, "I once heard those things eat people. Now it's teaching us how it follows prey through woods." A bright-eyed child might pet a reptilian croot hound at a supervised petting corner, giggling at the creature that would have given her grandmother a heart attack to see stalking the wilds. These little things slowly chip away at the ingrained xenophobia of Imperial culture. The message: not all Xenos are your enemies. In fact, they can be friends, colleagues, even protectors. Health and welfare. The average Imperial citizen under the old regime had essentially no safety net. Medical care was minimal unless you were rich or in the military. And even then, the Medicaid might just give you a shot of painkiller and bionic stump if you lost a limb. The Tau, as part of their charm offensive, deploy medical drones and clinicians to address the most pressing health issues. Hospitals are refurbished. Tau medics, from the Earth caste, maybe with some empathetic water caste bedside manners, begin treating lingering diseases for free. Vaccination drives, nutritional supplements, it's almost like a humanitarian campaign. It is one, though not purely out of altruism. A healthier workforce is a more productive workforce, and a population that sees the Tau curing their sick will be far less eager to see them as villains. A mother watches as her sick infant, who would have died under the apothecary's leechcraft before, now recovers because a floating drone administered some high-tech antiviral. How fiercely will that mother now reject the calls of a hidden Imperial preacher who tells her, "These aliens are evil." The evidence of her own eyes and heart weigh against the old hatred. Religion and culture. Over these months, the Imperial cult's presence diminishes. Fewer sermons, more community gatherings, orchestrated by the water caste. Some truly devout families keep tiny shrines to the Emperor in their homes, lighting a candle behind drawn shutters. For now, the Tau don't knock down your door for that. But what they do is introduce alternatives. They promote civic events on days that used to be Imperial Saints' Feast days, where once everyone had to attend the local chapel of Saint Dominica on a certain day. Now there's a big festival of unity in the park with free food and Tau fireworks. They love their drone displays. The kids drag their parents along, and wouldn't you know it, they ended up skipping the old religious observance. With each generation, the grip of the ecclesiarchy loosens. There are even instances where cunning water caste propagandists co-opt Imperial symbols cleverly. Perhaps a pamphlet circulating that shows an image of the God Emperor, an all-too-familiar robed figure on a golden throne, with a halo that subtly blends into the Tau symbol behind him, accompanied by a quote like, "All wise leaders desire the prosperity of their people," attributed, of course, to some appropriate source. The suggestion sinks in. Service to the Tau Empire and its greater good could be interpreted as being in line with the Emperor's will for mankind's happiness. It's a blasphemous spin, but to a population in cognitive dissonance, it provides a comforting bridge. You're not betraying your Emperor, you're just achieving his dream for you by different means. Friend or foe, the human element. With the passage of time, society stratifies under Tau rule into broadly three groups among the human populace: the collaborators, the compliant, and the quiet resistors. Each group experiences the new order in very different ways. The collaborators are those humans who have thrown themselves wholeheartedly into serving the Tau Empire. They are often the ones with the most to gain, or those who early on decided to switch sides to save their skins. Many PDF, Planetary Defense Force officers and Imperial officials who survived the conquest fall into this category. Some do it cynically for power or rewards. But a surprising number truly drink the Kool-Aid of the greater good. They come to believe that this alliance is not only beneficial, but morally right. They see the improvements around them and conclude, The Tau delivered on what they promised. Perhaps their philosophy is genuinely better for humanity than the Imperium's cruelty. These collaborators become the bureaucrats and enforcers of the new regime. Picture a former PDF colonel, once proud to serve the Emperor, now wearing a new uniform bearing a blue Tau symbol on the shoulder. He's in charge of a mixed security force of Tau and human auxiliaries, keeping order in the very hab blocks he swore to defend as an Imperial officer. He justifies it to himself. My duty is still to protect these people, just under a new banner. When a riot flares up in the workers' district, perhaps incited by a hidden cell of Imperial loyalists spreading rumors that the water filters are actually poison, this colonel is the one who coordinates the response. He uses pacification drones and stun carbines, containing the unrest with minimal bloodshed. Afterward, he addresses the crowd with a megaphone, urging calm, extolling how much their lives have improved. In that moment, he certainly doesn't feel like a villain. In fact, in his mind, the rioters, screaming to bring back the old days, are the villains, trying to drag everyone back into misery and war. Collaborators also include intellectuals and professionals who see opportunities. The chief medicae of the capital's main hospital might have been a secret skeptic of the Imperium's backward ways. Now, with Tau medicine at her fingertips, she's practically giddy at what she can do. She becomes an advocate for the new system. They let me save lives I'd otherwise lose. How could I not support them? Some collaborators go to even greater lengths to prove loyalty. There are accounts of human officials voluntarily adopting Tau customs, wearing Tau-style tunics instead of Imperial dress, learning to speak in the Tau tongue when dealing with their overlords, even altering their appearance. It's not unheard of for zealous human converts to shave their heads, if not already shaved by war, and paint or tattoo the Tau Empire's symbol or some inspirational Tau words onto their skin. A few go so far as to use cosmetic implants to appear more acceptable. For example, one propagandist story tells of a clerical scribe who had a small circular emblem embedded in his forehead to mimic the ethereal's brow crest, a misguided gesture as it earned him more amused pity from the Tau than respect. But such is the fervor of the converted. They become more Tau than the Tau, at least in their own minds. However, not even the most sycophantic collaborator can escape a certain glass ceiling in this new society. The Tau are grateful for help and will reward it up to a point. High positions in local administration, yes. Comfortable lifestyles, yes. But true power remains with the Tau themselves. No human collaborator is going to be made planetary governor over a Tau. No human will join the Ethereal Council or dictate empire-wide policy. The Tau keep the ultimate authority firmly in their own hands. Collaborators thus serve an important role, but always just shy of equality. If any human in the new regime starts to really get ambitions, say a charismatic militia leader gaining a personal following, the Tau will gently, or not so gently, put them back in their place. Perhaps a reassignment off-world, flattering them. We need your talents elsewhere, far away. How fortunate. Or an unfortunate lethal accident if they pose a threat. This seldom needs to happen, though, as most collaborators understand the unspoken rules. Be useful, be loyal, but don't overstep. The second broad group, the compliant, are the majority of the population. They are not fervent supporters, but they are not actively resisting either. They're the regular citizens who, faced with enormous change, chose the path of least resistance, adaptation. Some do so grudgingly, others almost happily, but mostly they just live their lives under the new normal. They work their jobs, which might be slightly nicer now. They raise their families, and they follow the laws, which for a peaceful citizen might actually intrude on their life far less than imperial laws did. In the Imperium, an average person constantly has to show fealty, attend rites, avoid saying anything heretical, and fear random persecution. Under the Tau, if you're an average person and you just do your work and don't incite trouble, the government largely leaves you be or even helps you along. Many compliants find that oddly liberating. Take the example of a middle-aged factory worker named Jorun. Under the Imperium, Jorun spent 14-hour shifts stamping shell casings with the Emperor's sigil, was paid in scrip that barely bought half a loaf of synth bread, and had to bribe a clerk to get medicine for his sick wife. He cursed his life daily, quietly of course, for fear of reprimand. Now, under Tau administration, Jorun's factory has been retooled to produce components for agricultural machines. Still hard work, but somewhat less dangerous than munitions manufacturing. His shift is 10 hours with a proper meal break because the Tau determined productivity actually improved when they allowed workers a rest. Imagine that. He gets a modest but fair wage in the new currency, which can buy a whole loaf of real grain bread plus some fruit from off-world. His wife received treatment in a new clinic and is on the mend. And Jorun doesn't have to attend a single ranting war sermon on Sunday if he doesn't want to. Frankly, Jorun is okay with all this. He might not declare love for the Tau Empire, but when his brother-in-law, who was an Arbites trooper and lost his status, grumbles about alien overlords, Jorun shrugs and says, "My life's gotten better." So what if they're Xenos? Let's not stir trouble. Jorun is emblematic of the majority. As long as the Tau deliver relative peace and bread, he's not going to stick his neck out to protest their rule. If anything, he might defend them in bar conversations just to avoid a return of chaos. The quiet resistors, however, are very much not content. This group includes all those who, for whatever reason, cannot accept the new order. Many are from the former Imperial elite, clergy, die-hard loyalist officers, noble families who lost their influence. Some are just patriots or zealots who feel shame at humanity bowing to aliens. They seethe under the surface of outward compliance. They form secret societies and resistance cells, whispering prayers to the Emperor in old catacombs and planning acts of sabotage or uprising. In the immediate months after conquest, these resistors are disorganized and on the run. The Tau intelligence, the water caste with help from the patient air caste's surveillance drones, plus perhaps even some dark Eldar mercenaries or other spies, if the Tau are desperate, but usually not, they prefer their own methods, hunts down obvious troublemakers. Some pockets remain, though. A handful of ex-guardsmen hiding in the hills with las guns, hitting lone Tau patrol vehicles in nighttime ambush. A passionate preacher in the underhive who tends to the poor and speaks of the Emperor's eventual return, keeping the flame of faith alive in a few hearts. Maybe even an inquisitor is involved. Indeed, that's a scenario the Tau leadership truly fears. If an Imperial Inquisitor was left behind or infiltrated in disguise, he or she could be rallying an underground movement, or worse, calling for an off-world response. From time to time, these resistors attempt something dramatic, planting a bomb at the new collaborationist governor's inauguration ceremony, or smuggling a Vox caster to broadcast a message urging rebellion. Such attempts usually fail or have limited success thanks to Tau countermeasures, but when they happen, they invite harsh repercussions. Here is where the velvet glove comes off and the iron fist shows. The Tau will publicly decry the act as senseless violence instigated by those who dwell in the irrelevant past. They'll emphasize how a handful of malcontents want to ruin the peace for everyone. Then, often without much fanfare, they eliminate the culprits. Sometimes this is an open firefight, cornering insurgents and gunning them down. Other times, it's a quiet midnight raid. Targets simply vanish, as if they never existed. There is an eerie phrase rumored among the populace, supposedly quoting a Tau official about troublesome dissidents. Such Gue'vesa simply disappear, and it is the way of the greater good to convince oneself they never existed at all. In other words, the regime covers up these erasures neatly, scrubbing records, altering memories through propaganda, until even neighbors of the gone start to doubt who it was that lived next door. It's subtle tyranny at its finest. A particular chilling example might be recounted. On a certain colony under Tau rule, a cell of human rebels attempted to sabotage a shield generator. They were caught. The next day, city residents saw something new in the central square. Gibbets, each holding a lifeless body in Imperial Guard fatigues, left hanging as a stark warning. A watercast mediator explained calmly to onlookers that these traitors, note, now they are called traitors to the greater good, endangered everyone's safety. So justice was served. The site is medieval. You'd think the Tau above such barbarity. But they calculated a bit of primal fear would do more to deter future rebels than any polite speech. After a day, the bodies were removed and life went on, with a bit more anxiety under those newly brightened smiles. Yet, interestingly, the Tau often prefer not to make such brutal examples if they can avoid it. More often, captured resistors are whisked away to re-education facilities. Yes, that is as ominous as it sounds. In these facilities, likely former Imperial holding pens or newly constructed compounds, the Tau, particularly the water and earth caste, apply psychological conditioning and indoctrination techniques. These range from relentless exposure to greater good philosophy lectures, forced participation in group activities that emphasize collective bonding, to more invasive measures. There are rumors, never confirmed officially, that the Tau employ subtle pheromone control methods via ethereals or even neural implants, devices that can soothe or suppress aggressive impulses. Indeed, the infamous Commander Farsight, a Tau who broke away, discovered some kind of mind control implant used by ethereals on the Tau themselves. One wonders if similar techniques might be tested on other species to ensure loyalty. So, a die-hard Imperial loyalist who refuses to yield might spend months in one of these centers, and if released, he emerges strangely changed. The fire in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a placid acceptance of his new lot. Brainwashed? Enlightened? It depends who you ask. His neighbors note that he no longer attends secret Emperor vigils. Instead, he quietly volunteers at the new community farm, humming an alien tune. It's creepy, but from the Tau perspective, it's a success story. The greater good has reclaimed a lost soul. Gue'vesa, humans in the Tau military machine. No examination of an imperial world under Tau rule would be complete without looking at those humans who take up arms for their new overlords. In the imperial tongue, they are traitors. In Tau nomenclature, they are Gue'vesa, meaning human helpers or human auxiliaries. The very existence of Gue'vesa is a glaring contrast between the two regimes. The Imperium of man would never allow aliens in its armies, and any human who sides with aliens is deemed a heretic and traitor deserving death. The Tau Empire, in its quest for unity, not only allows alien auxiliaries, but earnestly integrates them, to a degree, into their forces. On our transformed world, the process likely began even as the dust from the battles settled. Some planetary defense force units surrendered en masse when defeat was clear. Instead of interning all these soldiers indefinitely, the Tau made a shrewd move. They offered them a new purpose. After careful vetting to weed out those too devoutly imperial or likely to rebel, Many of these former PDF troops are organized into auxiliary regiments under Tau command. The offer is accompanied by both carrot and stick. The carrot: continue serving, keep your rank perhaps, receive better gear and training, and protect your own people under the greater good. The stick: refuse and you might find yourself in a labor camp or worse, because we can't have thousands of idle ex-soldiers with grudges. Many choose the carrot, if only out of self-preservation, and once they choose, the Tau make sure to bind their loyalty tight. These newly minted human auxiliaries go through a retraining program. Often they're taken off-world for a time to an auxiliary academy, such as the noted Kirkath Academy on the Tau Septi world of Saksea, a place specifically set up to indoctrinate and train human soldiers. Being off-world serves a dual purpose. It removes them from local contacts that might encourage desertion, and it overawes them with the might of the Tau Empire. Imagine a former sergeant who has only ever seen his homeworld, now traveling through the stars to a bustling Tau colony. He sees vast cities where Tau and other species mingle. He sees military bases with gleaming battlesuits and rows of hover tanks, far more advanced than anything his PDF had. He realizes the Tau are powerful and perhaps here to stay. Aligning with them might not be a bad idea. At the academy, human recruits are taught the Tau's way of war. Some recruits are even from other integrated human worlds, so there's a mix, proving to newcomers that they're not the first or only ones to do this. They drill with Tau pulse weaponry, practice squad tactics alongside Tau fire warriors, and, importantly, are schooled in the greater good philosophy deeply. The Tau don't necessarily turn them into automatons. In fact, they encourage a sense of honor and purpose. A typical speech by a Tau instructor might go, "You Gue'vesa know war. You were good soldiers even under a regime that gave you so little. Now, with our guidance and technology, you can become something greater. Protectors not just of one world, but of an ideal that spans many worlds. You fight so that one day humans and Tau and all species can share peace." Compared to an Imperial commissar barking, "Die for the Emperor because I say so," it's a rather intoxicating message for a soldier. Many human soldiers do indeed embrace this role zealously. Reports return to our world of its sons and daughters, proving themselves in Tau campaigns across the stars. Perhaps a cadre of Gue'vesa from this planet fought alongside the Tau in putting down an orc piracy outbreak on a nearby trade route, succeeding because the human auxiliaries could think differently and adapt in ways the rigid orcs didn't expect. Such stories are highlighted in local news broadcasts as propaganda. Sergeant Damaris, once a conscript of our planetary militia, now leads a squad of Gue'vesa that saved a Tau colony from alien raiders. He returns home next month to receive commendation from the Ethereal himself. Suddenly, youth on the planet have martial heroes who aren't space marines or Imperial aces, but their own people fighting under the Tau flag. Still, the life of a Gue'vesa soldier is complicated. They are given decent equipment, yes, usually an armor and weapon kit, mixing human familiarity with Tau upgrades. For instance, many use las guns, the standard Imperial laser rifle, refitted with improved power packs courtesy of Earthcast, or even entirely Tau pulse rifles if supply allows. They might deploy with Tau-manufactured combat fatigues and some drone support. In combat, the Tau treat them as a support force. They often fill the niche between the feral Kroot mercenaries and the elite Tau fire warriors. Humans are versatile, clever, and less brittle in melee than Tau, though not as strong as Kroot. The Tau command might use human auxiliaries to garrison captured positions, man fortifications, or perform policing actions. Roles where interacting with fellow humans, whether on an Imperial world being invaded or guarding an integrated colony, is easier for a human to do than an alien. Sometimes Gue'vesa are used in frontline battles too, especially if the terrain suits infantry, or if their particular insight can be useful. For example, human intuition can occasionally outguess more logic-bound Tau doctrine, providing creative tactics. They have to prove themselves constantly. Some Tau still look down on them as less disciplined, less honorable. But other Tau leaders, especially those who have seen them in action, come to respect them as trustworthy allies. Back on our world, a portion of the defense forces is now composed of these returned, trained Gue'vesa units. Essentially, the planetary defense force is reborn, but under a new banner and structure. It's actually stronger and better equipped than before, ironically. The defensive orbital lasers are repaired with Tau tech. The barracks get new stock of pulse, ammo, and drones. The human soldiers wear the emblem of the Tau sept, or sphere that this world is part of, not the old Imperial Aquila. And crucially, a Tau officer or ethereal is typically embedded with every sizable unit, ensuring loyalty. These human troops swear oaths to the greater good. Some still secretly murmur the Emperor's name as they do. Old habits die hard. But many have come to genuinely identify with their new cause. And what about their relationship with the civilian population? Here's an interesting change. A human auxiliary patrolling a city neighborhood can actually be a comforting sight for locals now. Because he or she is a local, someone's cousin or neighbor, wearing a uniform and doing their job to keep the peace. It's far less alien than a battle-suited Tau looming over you. The Tau exploit this. Whenever possible, integrated worlds have human peacekeepers doing the daily beats. It gives the occupation a friendly face. Of course, those peacekeepers answer to Tau superiors, but to the average person it feels like our own guys keeping order, nothing oppressive. A bit of normalcy in the new order. However, the dark side cannot be ignored. These same Gue'vesa will be the ones kicking down the door of a secret shrine or arresting an Imperial loyalist if ordered. And that is when the moral conflict hits. A number of them struggle with it, the duty to their new allegiance versus the empathy for their fellow humans. We can imagine an incident. A cell of resistors is found in a warehouse, but instead of sending Tau fire teams, the command sends a unit of human auxiliaries led by a Tau adjutant. They corner the rebels. Shots are exchanged. In the aftermath, a Gue'vesa corporal realizes one of the dead rebels is his childhood friend, who refused to surrender his faith in the Emperor. The corporal feels a stab of grief and guilt. Later, he's seen painting the side of his helmet blue, the Tau color of fidelity, as if trying to cover that guilt with renewed commitment. These are the personal dramas that play out silently under the larger political narrative. Not every collaborator escapes unscathed in conscience. Many must double down on belief in the greater good just to live with the things they do against their own kind at the Tau's behest. This delicate balance is why the ethereals and commanders keep a very close eye on Gue'vesa morale and loyalty. If ever a unit wavers, they'll break it up, reassign individuals, or bring in more indoctrination teams to shore up faith. Interestingly, the Tau eventually allow some Gue'vesa to attain fairly high positions within their limited sphere. While no human will command a Tau army, a veteran human auxiliary might become commander of a mostly human battalion or even the captain of a starship in a secondary fleet, especially merchant or patrol fleets. For example, our world's first generation of Tau-aligned soldiers might produce a figure like Commander. Name, perhaps Corel if given a Tau rank. Prefix for an auxiliary naval captain who leads a commerce protection vessel crewed largely by humans. Tales of such individuals are held up as proof that aliens and humans can work side by side. It's propaganda, but rooted in some truth. A human can rise to a point, but remember, they can never become a member of the sacred Tau fire caste or other castes. They remain outside the caste hierarchy, which effectively caps their status. There is a quiet discrimination inherent in that, though the Tau would frame it as natural order and different roles. Population and demographics. It's worth noting the long-term demographic concerns of Tau rule. Some of these human worlds have populations that dwarf the entire Tau species population. A single hive city can house billions of humans, whereas the Tau Empire's core might have tens or hundreds of millions of Tau. This reality is not lost on the ethereals. They realize that if left unchecked, humans could become the dominant demographic within their empire, which poses cultural and security risks. Humans are more likely to produce psychers, something the Tau fear. Also, a huge human majority might one day challenge Tau authority from within. So behind the scenes, there are rumors and some evidence of population control measures. One method is encouraging or imposing a lower birth rate among the new human subjects. Tau propaganda on our world might subtly shift to praising small, well-supported families and providing incentives for having one child per couple. Access to birth control is widespread, quite the change from imperial policy, which often encouraged as many births as possible, to have more factory workers and soldiers, regardless of living conditions. Some human communities might willingly follow this, enjoying the improvement in quality of life for a smaller family. Others might resist such unnatural limitations, but over a generation, social norms can change. There are darker whispers that on certain worlds, names like Cronus or Vel'Kan's human enclaves are mentioned in hushed tones. The Tau enacted mass sterilizations of segments of the human population, possibly those deemed troublesome or simply excess. These claims are hard to verify, certainly no Tau official would ever confirm them. But conspiracy murmurs exist, a story of a clinic that administered a vaccination to thousands which secretly left them infertile, or a tale of entire refugee camps from war being relocated off-world, never to be seen again, solving an overpopulation issue neatly. Whether or not our particular world sees such extremes, the possibility lingers in the air, unnoticed by the cheerful worker who's too busy enjoying his now stable life to think about why his new wife hasn't conceived yet, despite those fancy alien prophylactics they used. Another aspect is dealing with human psyker births. In the Imperium, any child showing psychic talent would be collected by the Black Ships to either serve or be sacrificed to the Emperor's soul furnace. On a Tau-held world, the Imperium's Black Ships will not come, and likely couldn't without conflict. So what do the Tau do when a human child starts manifesting psychic powers? The Tau themselves are nearly devoid of psychic presence and have limited understanding of it. This is a quandary. It's probable that part of the secret population control includes monitoring and quietly removing psychers. Perhaps the Tau have arrangements with allies. Maybe the Nikasar, a psychic ally species of the Tau, help identify such individuals. Or maybe they even clandestinely hand dangerous psychers over to neutral parties or terminate them quietly to avoid warp disasters. There might be the tragic scenario where a family's child displays telekinetic ability, and the next day, without explanation, a team of a Tau with drones shows up at their door and takes the screaming child away for everyone's safety. The family is then counseled or threatened into silence. To the broader public, these incidents are kept out of view to maintain the image that everything under the greater good is smooth and without the terrifying phenomena that plague the Imperium. Chaos cults, warp mutations. Those are problems for Imperials, not for the orderly Tau realm, or so the propaganda says. It's a lie, of course. The warp doesn't care about political boundaries. But the Tau will do everything to keep such corruption from taking root on their watch, even if it means methods as grim as any Inquisitors, albeit with a much friendlier face. The shadow of the Imperium. All this time, as our hypothetical world settles into life under Tau dominion, one enormous question mark looms. What will the Imperium of man do? The Imperium is not known for forgiving and forgetting. Every human world is theoretically the God Emperor's property, and losing one to Xanos is an affront that must be avenged. Indeed, in many cases, once the Imperium has bandwidth, i.e., once they've dealt with whatever other galactic crises distracted them, they will plan to reclaim the lost world. This could take years, decades, or even centuries. Warp travel and the bureaucratic juggernaut are unpredictable. But you can be sure some Imperial commander has a big red circle on a star map marking this planet with the note, "In the hands of traitors." Recapture or exterminatus when possible. The people on the ground, meanwhile, are trying to get on with their lives and probably hoping the Imperium doesn't come back. Even many who once were loyal now dread what Imperial retribution would look like, because history gives a cruel precedent. When the Imperium does retake a world that had gone over to the enemy, their punishments are biblical. There have been instances of liberated worlds where every collaborator was executed on the spot, sometimes along with a hefty percentage of the general population, just to purify the citizenry through blood. In the eyes of the Imperium, these people are not seen as victims of Tau conquest, but as complicit heretics. The logic being, if you didn't all fight to the last against the aliens, you are guilty of treason. It's a monstrous expectation, of course, especially given many worlds did resist and still lost. But the Imperium's wrath is rarely logical. So imagine the psychological stress of living under Tau rule with that guillotine hanging overhead. The new government certainly is aware of it. The Tau likely bolster planetary defenses and encourage the populace to see the Imperium as the true threat to their safety now. It's an ironic turning of tables. We protect you from the cruel Imperium that would burn you for freedom, and it's not an empty claim. Some on this world might recall the short war that brought the Tau here. They remember how the Imperial Navy bombarded a whole continent during the war, killing civilians just to deny it to the Tau for a while. Or they might have knowledge, suppressed but whispered, of other worlds where Imperial liberation came in the form of virus bombs when recapture was deemed too costly. In one corner of the Hab block, an old woman prays to the Emperor nightly for deliverance. In another, a family prays he never comes back because they've known more peace now than in generations. The Tau might prepare contingency plans, for instance, evacuation protocols. If they suspect a massive Imperial crusade is inbound, they may decide whether they'll stand and fight or cut losses. The value of the world factors in. Is it strategically important or more a fringe experiment? The Tau generally avoid head-on fights they can't win. If an entire segmentum fleet arrives, they might smuggle out key personnel, ethereals, loyalists, scientists, and leave the world to its fate, possibly even sabotaging it in their wake, scorched earth to deny it back to the Imperium easily. However, they also hate to abandon those who've embraced them. It's quite likely they'd try to hold the world, making it a fortress and rally other nearby Tau forces to its defense. They might even accelerate the integration, arming more humans, recruiting every able fighter, reminding them the alternative is Imperial retribution. Fight for us, or the Imperium will slaughter you as traitors, is a dire but effective motivator. Many who were lukewarm might pick up a rifle to defend their home from their former countrymen, ironically. If the Imperium does attack, our world would be plunged into war again. A war perhaps even more destructive than the short original coup. We can foresee the tragedy. Cities painstakingly rebuilt by the Tau, now reduced to rubble by Imperial artillery. Civilians who got used to comfort now cowering again in fear, caught between two juggernauts. Some might try to side with the Imperium as liberators, only to be summarily shot by suspicions commissars. Once a traitor, always a traitor. Others fight bravely alongside Tau comrades, truly convinced they are defending their home against fanatical invaders. A complete reversal of roles from the first conflict. Families are split. Brother on one side as a guardsman in a landing pod, sister on the other as a Gue'vesa auxiliary in a trench. If the Tau manage to repel the attack, the people sigh relief, and the bond with the Tau Empire is cemented even more deeply by shared blood. If the Imperium wins, then as the last Tau dropship flees or is shot down, the hammer falls. Many of those who once cheered the improvements find themselves herded into camps or facing an inquisitor's judgment. "Why did you not resist the Xenos to your dying breath?" he asks coldly, and there is no good answer to satisfy such zealotry. The world might be saved for the Emperor, but at the cost of its soul and a good chunk of its population. In some cases, the Inquisition doesn't even bother with re-education and purge. They simply declare exterminatus, a death sentence on a planetary scale. Virus bomb the atmosphere. Let firestorms cleanse the heresy. Millions or billions dead in hours, and a once thriving world left a charnel husk, to be recolonized anew by loyal settlers later. All the progress under the Tau, all the lives improved, reduced to ash because in the eyes of the Imperium, it's better to destroy a tainted world than let it live free under aliens. It's sobering and dark, but this sword of Damocles, fittingly, as the region where Tau and Imperium first clashed is called the Damocles Gulf, hangs over every Tau-held human world. Some people choose willful denial. Surely the Imperium has bigger problems, they won't come. Others live in quiet fear, especially those who know the Imperium well enough. Perhaps in taverns, some grizzled ex-guardsman turned Gue'vesa sergeant drowns his sorrows, telling his younger comrades, "If we lose, pray the Tau take you with them. You don't want to be here when the Inquisition lands." Transformation and identity. What truly is the fate of an imperial world under Tau rule when viewed in totality? It is a study in transformation, not just of infrastructure and governance, but of identity. Over years and generations, a human society remakes itself to align with an alien creed. It's gradual and often paradoxical. One paradox is that people might actually become happier and safer in certain measurable ways, even as they give up intangible things like cultural heritage and freedom of self-determination. The Imperium gave them purpose, serve the Emperor, but no say in their lives and often great suffering. The Tau give them purpose, serve the greater good, and in exchange actually alleviate suffering, up until the point that purpose is questioned, at which moment the velvet glove can clench into a fist just as unforgiving as the Imperium's. Another aspect, hybridization of culture. After a few decades, you'd find a very interesting cultural scene on this world. Perhaps humans start celebrating Tau holidays, like the commemoration of the planet's induction into the Empire each year with lights and feasts, because the Tau love a good Unity Day party to reinforce loyalty. Meanwhile, some human traditions survive, but in altered form. The Emperor's birthday, once a holy day, might quietly become more like a historical festival or even morph into a day of remembrance for those who died in the Conquest War, depoliticized and allowed as a catharsis. Language becomes peppered with Tau loanwords. People greet each other with a phrase like Dianoi, a Tau greeting in some dialect, instead of good day. Fashion could evolve too. Younger folks wear hybrid styles, maybe a fusion of utilitarian Tau suits and human casual clothes, creating a new Gue'vesa chic seen in city streets. Interspecies friendships, and yes, possibly romances, though the biological gulf is large with Tau, still never underestimate the complexities of sapient attraction, may form further blending communities. Yet, lines remain. As mentioned, no human is entering the Tau upper echelons. Humans remain a client species. Even if 99 out of 100 forget the Emperor entirely and love the Tau Empire, that 1 out of 100 who remembers can cause havoc, and the Tau know it. So they remain watchful. There's an almost paternalistic attitude. Humans are passionate, quick-breeding, and have a troubling affinity for the warp. We must guide them firmly. They do genuinely see themselves as enlighteners. But the enlightened sometimes chafe under the teacher's rule. One has to also consider the wider galaxy's view. Other aliens might see the Tau's human worlds and react in various ways. The Eldar, might sneer that these Mon-K, their word for humans, are pets of the Tau now. Or perhaps some craft-world farseers quietly approve, since a world under Tau is at least not a world serving chaos or the hated Imperium. Small consolation. The orcs, well, an orc doesn't care. They'll crump whoever's in charge anyway. Chaos gods certainly are not thrilled. A stable, relatively content population is harder to corrupt than a downtrodden, desperate one. The chaos cults that might have lurked in the dark corners of an imperial world find it harder to entice people who are now fed and given hope by secular alien governance. Ironically, the Tau may be unknowingly insulating these populations against chaos to a degree. Happy, rational people with no religion are less likely to fall to zealous extremism or mad despair, fertile ground for chaos. But should chaos get a foothold, the Tau are ill-equipped to sense or handle it initially. It's a wild card. For the Black Library enthusiasts and novel readers, one can imagine endless stories set in this milieu. A noir thriller about a Gue'vesa detective in the city trying to catch a chaos cultist before the ethereal decides to purge the whole district. A dramatic tale of a forbidden love between a human and a Vespid translator, highlighting cultural barriers. A tragedy of a secret Imperial assassin who infiltrates to kill the ethereal, and a young human security officer torn between stopping the assassin to protect the alien ruler he's come to respect, or letting the shot fire to free his people of alien control, albeit plunging them into chaos. The planet under Tau rule is ripe with narrative because it sits at the crossroads of ideologies, species, and moralities. The final verdict. Now we come to the end of our exploration. What is the ultimate fate of an imperial world under Tau rule? It would be comforting to tie it in a neat bow, to say it thrives in perpetual peace and harmony, or conversely to say it inevitably fails and returns to imperial fold or falls apart. But reality, even fictional reality in the 41st millennium, is more nuanced. Each such world is an ongoing experiment, a tightrope walk over a dark abyss. Many of these worlds do thrive, at least for a time. They become showcase examples that the Tau point to and say, see how the greater good elevates even the once benighted worlds of man. On these planets, millions of human lives genuinely improve. Once empty bellies are filled, once shuttered minds are educated, and the pall of fear lifts from daily life. If those worlds could remain in a bubble, isolated from the old conflicts, One could almost imagine them evolving into truly mixed human-Tau societies, perhaps a new blended culture that might stand the test of time. Yet, they are not in a bubble. They exist in the grim darkness of the far future, where war is unending. The very success of these worlds' integration makes them targets, beacons of defiance in the Imperium's monolithic domain. So their fates are often turbulent. Some are indeed retaken by brute force, their bright hopes extinguished in blood. Others might suffer internal catastrophe, maybe a chaos uprising the Tau couldn't foresee, leaving the world a demonic playground that both Tau and Imperium then avoid or purge wholesale, ironically uniting in horror at what emerged. And perhaps some will yet endure, tucked away on the fringes, prospering quietly under the greater good's aegis, waiting for a future where larger events, like a tyrannid hive fleet or the Great Rift, determine if they stand or fall. For the people themselves, individually, the transformation is deeply personal. A grandfather tells his grandson about the days when they worshipped a distant emperor and lived in fear. The boy, born under Tau rule, barely believes such dark age tales. A former Imperial guardswoman, now a Gue'vesa veteran, trains local militia in tactics to repel any Imperial commando incursions, effectively preparing to fight those she once served alongside. Is she a hero or a traitor? History's answer would depend entirely on who writes it: the Empire of Man or the Empire of the Tau. In a quiet shrine-turned museum, the marble statue of the Emperor that once dominated the plaza now gathers dust in a back room, out of sight. A human custodian employed by the Tau is about to haul it off to be recycled, but he pauses, contemplating the stern visage. Perhaps he feels a pang of ancestral reverence or pity, and instead of destruction, he covers the statue respectfully with a tarp, letting it slumber in obscurity. This is how the old ways fade, not always with explosions, but with a soft sigh of irrelevance as new generations move on. Yet, in the vastness of space, one cannot help but think of the eternal war that rages. The documentary might end with a shot of the night sky above this planet, two moons casting pale light. Somewhere out there, the guns of the Imperium thunder and the Crusade fleets muster, and perhaps on a distant star fort, an Imperial admiral gazes at a map with this planet marked in traitor red, whispering, "One day we'll bring you back into the Emperor's light." At the same time, above the planet, a Tau ethereal looks down from his orbital station at the peaceful cities below and thinks, "We have brought illumination to these Mon-K. We must protect them from the darkness yet to come." Both think they are saviors. Both would claim righteousness. And the people of the planet, they simply hope to live their lives free of war and fear, forging a new destiny out of the alloy of two empires. In the end, an Imperial world under Tau rule stands as a living paradox. It is a place where humanity's darkest hours meet the promise of a brighter future, where the oppressive cruelty of the past is replaced by the calculated benevolence of aliens. It is a world that has escaped the old tyrant only to embrace the new Messiah. Whether that Messiah's promise is true or just another lie will be the test of time. As the cosmos slowly turns, these worlds remain, caught between the Emperor's stern gaze and the ethereal's guiding hand, daring to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, there is something better than unending war. For now, they have peace, a fragile, delicate peace, paid for by compromise and cooperation. How long it lasts is written in the stars and the annals of fate, but one thing is certain. The fate and transformation of these worlds have forever altered the tapestry of human destiny in the galaxy. This is the story of an Imperial world under Tau rule, a story still unfolding in cautious hope and lingering shadow beneath the eternal night of a war-torn galaxy.